Warning, this video will have heavy spoilers for Expedition 33. You have been warned. So, this one is pretty popular, huh? Alright, so you've heard about this game already. I've heard about this game before I even played it. I'm pretty sure after the Game Awards, anyone who is even tangentially interested in video games has heard about it already. So, does it actually live up to the hype that has been heaped upon it by the wider gaming community at large? Well, let's dive in and see what's in here to enjoy. Is it the greatest game of the decade, bringing turn-based RPGs back to the glory days, or are we all just getting collectively trolled by the rest of the gaming community? Warning for Act 1 spoilers ahead. So, we start off in the city of Lumiere, playing as a man named Gustave, deciding that he is going to try and reconcile with his past love named Sophie, on the day of her gamage. Oh, what's the gamage, you ask? Oh, it's only the day when the paintress wakes up and paints a new number on the monolith, and anyone who is older than that number gets turned into dust and flower petals, and they get scattered to the wind, so yeah, totally chill. Who exactly is a paintress? Why is she gamaging people? Well, that is the hook for our story as we set off on Expedition 33. Roll title. Okay, so we make landfall on the continent of... The continent? Huh, well, pretty much everyone dies by an old man. I fear the old man something is something and men die young. And we wake up near a waterfall alone. Okay, solo mission, no problem, we got this. Then we see a bunch of our friends that have been turned into a modern arts display and try to nope the hell out, but thankfully, a woman named Lune survived and stops us. So, we get to our rendezvous point, the indigo tree, see another one of our expedition members perish in front of us, and have our first legit boss fight. And see a message that says to follow them to a door in a hut to see Mael again, who is our adoptive sister/daughter. We give Luna an ultimatum, essentially forcing her to come with us, and head to an area called Flying Waters to track down Mael and the mysterious person who left the message. We eventually find the spoken of door and find Mael in a place simply called the Manor. She apparently has been helped by a mysterious figure called the Curator who teaches us how to jump. And then we go outside to meet Noko, the merchant, who says that someone named Versa will not be pleased that we were trespassing in his house. Noko tells us how to get to his village so we might get help crossing the sea because our boat got destroyed by the old man. So, we find our way to the Gestural village after finding our way through an army of Sakapatate where we have to fight in a tournament to prove our strength to the village chiefs, so we can meet a legendary figure named Eskie. At the final round of the tournament, we find another surviving expeditioner named CL who washed up in a nearby forest. We go to meet Eskie after Gustave yells at the guard. Not cool, man. Eskie calls CL its terrible swimmer friend, and asks us to fetch him a special rock from the Stone Wave Cliffs after a brief confrontation with a turtle. Going to the cliffs, we fight another boss called the Lamp Master, who is our first two-stage boss fight. Then the old man shows up, kills Gustave, and almost gets Mael, but is saved by a mysterious man, and that is the end of Act 1, Gustave. So, why Gustave was great. So since we have come to the end of Gustave's story, I want to do a bit of a dive into his character, so please bear with me. First off, I think killing off Gustave was actually a really good choice. I know, I loved him too, but for the emotional growth of the rest of the party, he had to go. Gustave felt like the linchpin of the party. He was super likable, but earlier on in Act 1, he and Lune have a conversation while they are going to meet Mael on whether or not he still believes that the mission is more important than any individual life. His answer to Luna's question is that he hopes he does. This brings him full circle to the end of Act 1 where he stands his ground in an unwinnable fight for those who come after, right? Even even as Mael begs him not to. It solidifies his resolve for a better future even if he isn't there to see it. Because as long as the others survive, at least to him, that means there is still hope. And if hope exists, then it's worth fighting for. I give Gustav a character grade of A. He is exactly what I want out of a main character. He was likable, smart, and when he died, it was heartbreaking both for the player and for the characters. Now, Verso appears. Alright, we learn that the man who saved Mael is the Verso that Noko talked about and was a member of Expedition Zero. We learn some of that Expedition's members have stopped aging, and the old man, whose name we now know as Renoir, thinks the immortality is a gift from the Paintress. So we head to find Verso's friend Minoko to recruit him as extra firepower to take on the Paintress. We find him in an old dilapidated train station dilapidated train station side note. Yeah, I'm reading off of my script that I wrote. It's like, side note, what am I doing? Side note, if you have not heard his theme music, go ahead and give it a listen. It is amazing. But we managed to recruit him and head on to Old Lumiere, a desolate city with giant glowing swords everywhere. We eventually get separated it's actually pretty quick, into Old Lumiere because Minoko wanted to show off, but eventually reunite with the party in time for a boss fight with Renoir. After that, our preferred option of dealing with the Paintress is foiled, so we have to go hunt down two extremely powerful beings called Axons to be able to forge a weapon capable of piercing the barrier surrounding the Paintress. Yeah. So, we have two options. We eventually have to fight both, but the recommended one you go defeat first, which I did not do, to be honest, is he who guards truth with lies, Visages. We are invited straight to fight Visages by a mysterious entity, or we could go down the other path and see what they have. I logically exhaust every possible route, fighting the joy, anger, and sorrow masks before going for the main boss fight against Visages, who, after the fight, we learn is not the real Visages, but in reality Visages was the mysterious entity we talked to when we first entered the area. That done, we head on over to She Who Plays with the Wonder, Siren, and learn that if we are not careful, we will lose our minds. We venture around Siren's island, fight a mini-boss or two, and eventually learn that this is where Lune's parents met their end, and we have a chance to try and find their journal if we want to later. Siren is a fun boss fight, not too difficult if you fight the optional mini-boss that would provide her with shields if they were left alive, and you pick up the anti-charm picto and spread it across your party. But with two Axons down, we are able to have the Curator forge a weapon able to break the barriers surrounding the Paintress. We finally get inside the monolith, venturing through smaller versions of each place we have been through before. We eventually reach a large chamber with a floating orb high in the air, and as we walk further in, we have our final boss fight with Renoir. After a two-phase boss fight and some absolutely delectable music, we managed to defeat Renoir, and with the help of the Curator, we witness the start of the second destruction of the Desandre family. We continue on to the top of the monolith to confront the Paintress, who turns out to be Verso's mother. After an epic two-phase boss fight and a third phase that starts to give you an idea of what's really going on, the Paintress is defeated and gommaged by Mael. We plant our flag at the top of the monolith and fly back to Lumiere on Esque to celebrate the death of the Paintress. However, we find out that she was actually trying to protect the citizens of Lumiere from the real threat locked away beneath the monolith. Act 2 ends with every human in Lumiere besides Verso getting gommaged. The truth revealed. We start Epilogue Alicia a number of years in the past, playing as said character in what happens to be a version of the manor, with a woman named Clea calling for us. We learn that the main story of the game has been taking place in a canvas that was once painted by Alicia's brother, Verso. In her grief, our mother Eileen secluded herself away in the canvas and won't come out. In response, our father Renoir went in after her, but was trapped by Eileen beneath the monolith. Alicia decides to go in and try to help her father, but in process of entering, gets overwhelmed and ends up getting reborn as Mael. Act 3. Mael. How we deal with grief. Act 3 starts off with Mael reforming herself and walking over to Verso sitting on a bench. They talk about what has transpired, and Mael believes that she should be able to reason with Renoir, but she is mistaken. Renoir tries to send Alicia out of the canvas, but with the help of Eskia and Minoko, she grabs Verso and makes her escape. They head back to camp, and Mael manages to repaint Lune and Ciel. They talk, filling the latter two in on everything they miss, and hatch a plan to try and kick the real Renoir out of the canvas. They eventually decide on using the chroma trapped in the bodies of old expeditioners and use them basically as minions to deal with threats. This is where the game opens up for a ton of optional content, but this is just for the story, so let's continue. Heading back to Lumiere, we bring the fight to Renoir and battle across the city to him. Each side tries to reason with the other, but their views are unreconcilable, and thus the final fight against Renoir begins. It's another two-phase boss fight with Renoir calling in the Axons for backup, and the most annoying one is Cyrene, who restores him to full health when he gets low. Eventually, Eileen barges back into the canvas to help Mael and stop Cyrene from healing. Alicia finally manages to convince Renoir to leave, and the portal to the center of the canvas world opens, letting us decide its fate. Two opposing wishes. So, deciding the fate of the canvas comes down to two opposing views, Mael's and Verso's. Mael wants to restore the erased people in Lumiere and continue living in the canvas. Meanwhile, Verso wants to destroy the canvas after all the grief it has caused and send Mael back home while ending his own existence. Now, if you wanted to, you could say that both sides are being selfish here. Mael for wanting to live in the technically fake canvas world and denying Verso's wish to finally die, thus granting him his peace, or Verso choosing to fulfill his own desires and granting himself the end he so desperately craved, while sending Alicia back to a world and body she wants nothing to do with. Where you land on the respective sides of the argument, I feel, has to do with whether you consider the people of Lumiere real. Whether or not you feel like their wants, hopes, and dreams matter in the face of it all being inside of a canvas. In a perfect world, Verso's canvas wouldn't have to be destroyed, but until Alicia and Eileen can let go of Verso, I think it has to be. Because like Renoir said, this world keeps forcing cruel choices. While this story started off as a journey for the people of Lumiere to try and reclaim a future they couldn't see, by the end of it, we see it has transformed into one that asks, how do you deal with grief? Is there a right way? Should you allow people to grieve how they like, even if you can see it consuming them? Is it right to destroy one of the last things you have of the person you miss if it is keeping you from living? As you can probably tell, I went for Verso's ending, deciding to destroy the canvas and with it giving Verso his rest, while Alicia is forced back to the real world. I personally think this is the better of the two endings, at least for the Desandre family. While it will hurt her, it also gives Alicia the chance to move past her grief and reconnect with her family that is still alive. Something the other ending doesn't offer. Even if you do pick Mael's ending, everything feels slightly off to me. Gustave and Sophie are back, which is great, but they no longer feel real, at least to me. It's like everything is shifted slightly to the left. I can't help but feel like there is something wrong, and then it feels like Verso is forced to perform and is angry at Mael for not letting him rest in peace. I feel like it is the worst ending of the two, but maybe I'm way off base. Let me know your thoughts on the ending if you made it this far, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. But anyways, back to the video. Boring for this. Now that we are through the main story, I want to talk about some of the other characters. Since we have already talked about Gustav earlier in the video, we will jump straight to Lune. Lune's character throughout the game is extremely solid. Born as an apprentice to her parents who were previous expeditioners, Lune is all about the mission. Sure, all of the Expedition 33 members from Lumiere are, but Lune is the one who constantly repeats the Expeditioner's motto, "When one falls, we continue." At the start of the expedition, she says it after she sees Gustav again, and even after his death, her first instinct is to start making plans to leave a trail for this 32nd expedition. Her whole life has been for this journey, whether she necessarily wanted it to be or not. Doesn't really feel like it was ever a question of if Lune would join the expedition, only if she would be a part of the group to finally succeed where her parents failed. I personally liked her character a lot. She brought a sense of seriousness when others would try to make light of a situation or fall deep into despair. Yes, she was serious, but she wasn't overly gloomy, which I did appreciate. From a gameplay view, I have to say I did enjoy her kit the least out of the playable characters. I just found the others more fun, even if she did have a variety of different builds. I just wasn't that enthused by them. Now, our terrible swimming friend. CL is an interesting character to write about. She joins around halfway through Act 1, and she does have some moments, but I couldn't help but feel like we didn't see much from her. Now, I would say that her and SK very much make up the more optimistic side of the group. Now, I am not saying that this is a bad thing, nor am I saying her character is simply a happy-go-lucky character, which, if you take the time to go through her relationship levels, you know that is not the case. I guess what I'm trying to say is that, at least story-wise, I wish we would have gotten a little bit more from her. Combat-wise, I will say that CL is my favorite character to play, hands down. I love her kit with the sun and moon charges, then entering Twilight. Her playstyle is just so fun to me. Now, onto the feat collector. The first thing I have to say about Minoko is that, yeah, he has the best theme in the game, no questions asked. If you have somehow not heard it, like I mentioned earlier, please pause the video and go listen to it. It's so good. Alright, now that we have that out of the way, let's actually talk about Minoko. He unfortunately suffers from the last to join the party syndrome that so many other characters throughout RPG history suffer from. We don't get access to Minoko till about a quarter of the way through Act 2, and though that is still pretty early on, all things considered, it is about halfway through the story. Which isn't as bad as other games with their final party members, but it does mean we get the least amount of time with him compared to the rest of the party. Now, story-wise, Minoko's personal journey mainly revolves around Verso and Noko, and that makes sense given who Minoko's gestural self is based off of. His interactions with the rest of the party are kind of sparse, but with the time we do get with him, I enjoyed his presence immensely. Combat-wise, Minoko is our resident Blue Mage. For those of you not familiar with the term, a Blue Mage is a character who learns their different abilities from the creatures they fight. That being said, because of this role, he easily has one of the most diverse movesets out of the entire party. Minoko learns the skills of the various Nevrons throughout the game by collecting their feet. To do this, the only prerequisite for him is that he has to be in the party when the monster is destroyed, basically forcing him to be one of your frontliners if you want him to reach his full potential. All in all, I would say that Minoko quite easily falls into the comedic relief character despite him being quite somber and serious at times. His kit reflects that. He is wacky, he is fun, and he is Verso's most loyal companion. And yes, I think even more loyal than Askea. Though, that might just be my personal opinion. Now, Alicia's journey. So, where do I even start with Mael? Do I start with Alicia's life before the canvas, or do we start with her time as Mael before she remembered her true identity? Let's start from the beginning of the game to make things a little easier on ourselves. We first might meet Mael on a rooftop on Lumiere. She is trying to convince Gustav to get a move on before the inevitable gamage later that day. She gives us a combat tutorial and then sends us off to the rest of the story. We see her again later having volunteered to escort newly orphaned kids to the orphanage, and then again out on a dock after the gamage at the Expedition 33 going away party. Despite having 9 years before she would gamage, Mael decides to go on the expedition early, deciding that 1 year on the continent is probably better than 9 years in Lumiere. We initially get separated after the landing disaster, only to meet her again in Verso's manor being taken care of by Renoir disguised as the curator. We then follow the main party all the way to the Stonewave Cliffs, with Gustav breaking his promise to Mael and fighting for those who come after. Fast forward through the various scenes between her and Verso to at the end, the second Renoir fight, the curator showing up to remind his daughter how to gamage people. More half-memories start to slip through the cracks at the beginning of the Paintress fight, and she finally remembers who she is after getting erased at the end of Act 2. We of course learn that Mael is the real Alicia, but enough story recap, we went over this a little while ago. What does this all mean for Mael slash Alicia? We see through the course of the story that what drives Mael is the sense that she doesn't really feel like she belongs. She feels like she is missing something, so when the time comes and she sees one of the few people where she feels actually care about her getting ready to leave, she doesn't hesitate to sign up on what might be a hopeless mission just so she doesn't lose him. We also see in Epilogue Alicia that she carries a lot of guilt over what happened with Verso, that she is almost chasing the chance to do something that she feels is useful. So at the end of the game, I honestly don't feel like it is out of character for her to want to live the rest of her life in the canvas. It is an escape from what she feels is a horrible life outside the canvas, the chance to have her brother back, the chance to have Gustav back, to be able to speak again and breathe without pain. It is basically her happily ever after, and she can't really accept it that Verso doesn't feel the same way. Now, moving on from the story, her gameplay kit is pretty neat. A trio of stances to switch between that give her different effects. It reminds me a lot of the Watcher from Slay the Spire. Year 1, if you've played that. But as interesting as her kit is, I didn't find her that fun to play. You can build some insane burn with her, yes. I just didn't really like that playstyle, and she's pretty focused on the status. Now, Verso. What do I say about Verso? Should I admonish him for letting Gustav die? Should I praise him for helping Mael push Renoir out of the canvas? There is a lot to talk about here. I probably won't cover everything I want to say about Verso, but let's jump into the conversation about the man, the myth, the bastard. So, Verso is essentially a copy of himself created by his mother Eileen and implanted with his memories from before he originally died in the fire. Having lived through the fracture of Lumiere due to the power struggle between Eileen and Renoir, not counting his years as an actual living member of the Desandre family. Verso is, at the bare minimum, 67 years old and has had to see everyone around him die, thus leading to his current mindset of wanting to be done with his existence. When he joins the party at start of Act 2, he gives them just enough info to keep them moving, while obfuscating the truth. During the course of Verso's story, he outright lies to the party to achieve his goals. I don't know if this is an unpopular opinion or not, but I actually really love Verso's character. He is a ghost of a man trapped inside a war while being cursed with immortality. He still loves his family, that much is obvious, but he also wants them to move on. Because until they do, he's stuck there. This is even more obvious in Mael's ending, where she keeps Verso trapped in this life that he does not want, desperately holding on to her brother no matter how much he pleads with her to just let him rest. She can't let go of him, and thus he grows more bitter. I think the real tragedy of Verso is that even though his mother and sister fight to keep him around, they still don't seem to think of him as real. The consequence of this is that they constantly are ignoring what he actually wants, which is to not exist. This is even stated by Mal after Epilogue Alicia. You're not Verso, no. You look and sound like him, but you're you. I'm still Mael, though. She doesn't view him as the original Verso, just a facsimile of the original, and thus she ignores how he feels even when he says it over and over again. If she has her way, she continues to ignore his wishes in her ending. So I honestly feel that she doesn't really consider him as her brother, and if she did, then she wouldn't treat him that way. Now, as for Verso's kit, it's fine. Perfection is a neat enough mechanic, but nothing with the kit truly wowed me. That isn't to say it wasn't fun to play as him, it just means that there wasn't really anything exceedingly unique about his playful to me. But there is some beauty in the simplicity of it. So, how was it? Okay, this script has taken me about 3 weeks to write because I kept procrastinating or I couldn't think of what exactly I wanted to write next. So after everything I have said, the criticisms and the praise I have laid at this game's feet, what do I actually think of this game? Well, it did win Game of the Year and multiple other awards, so is it good? Yeah, it's honestly a really good and solid experience. Is it my favorite game? I don't know. It is a solid 9 out of a 10 game. It's a great game, but it isn't perfect. I feel like the balancing could have been better, and while I think the optional health multipliers and damage caps are neat, they shouldn't have taken the place of actually balancing the game. So with all that said, I give Claire Obscur Expedition 33 4.5 Versos out of 5. Thank you all so much for watching, and let me know if you disagree with my takes or not, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!